Welcome back. If the tax cut proposal passes, the Republicans get something, the Democrats get something, but what do the voters get? Let's talk to our political panel. David Mercer, Democratic strategist who's worked on several presidential campaigns. Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor and former pollster for Jimmy Carter. And Liz Peek, a conservative columnist. They all join us live. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I've known Pat Caddell for many years, and I've never seen him this fired up. And what it is Pat and all of you out in TV land, apparently Harry Reid has injected into the unemployment insurance bill and also into the tax cut bill a whole bunch of earmarks, things like benefits for NASCAR and Hollywood movie studios and rum and ethanol producers as well.
You know what? When you ask the question, what's in it for the American people, they're getting screwed. This is exactly what they voted against. And I have to presume that Senator McConnell went along with this deal since they're the only two people who seem to know what's in the bill. And what they have done is they have written a bill, but by the way, which basically jeopardizes the Republicans' future before they ever get to take power. By going back.
You think McConnell's in on this?
You bet your life isn't. If he isn't, then he should kill the bill. Because I want to tell you, when Rand Paul and these other people who tell the Tea Party people, the American people, look, my party is wallowing in corruption. And so are the Republicans in Washington. These people care more about their own petty corruptions and their own political power games than they do America. And they're turning this bill into a joke.
He says your party is wallowing in corruption, and it turned it into a joke, this bill.
Well, listen, the issue is transparency, Steve, and we see what's going to be in this bill. It's going to be voted on. And listen, NASCAR, that's one of the largest constituencies out there, and it is going for businesses and
I know you can make the argument for each and every earmark, but weren't the November midterms kind of a referendum on whether we like this out-of-control spending?
We definitely want to curtail our spending. At the same time, I think when you have issues or items that were on the table coming into the lame duck that had to be put to bed in the new Congress, we'll see if the Republican-controlled Congress reins in those earmarks, as the Tea Party has often said throughout the campaign.
Liz?
Oh, I think this is the gristle that makes the sausage that no one wants to watch in Washington, basically, right? I mean, this is business as usual. It's why Congress's ratings are lower than used car salesmen's in terms of the way people view them. They need to get this bill done, whether it has earmarks or not. And these look like ridiculous earmarks to me. No, hang on, stay calm. But they need to get this bill done. They cannot. I don't think they can go back and redo this bill. The time is very short.
The White House says they're not going to.
Yeah, and I think the Republicans are saying they're not going to. And look, they have got themselves in an incredible corner here.
Let me tell you something. This is $900 billion, which any way you cut it, a more deficit. Not a penny, not an effort in this bill for deficit reduction. We have a lame duck Congress that might as well be like the long parliament that Cromwell dismissed with the idea, go by the grace of God, go, you sat too long to do any good. This is unbelievable what's going on. And all they had to do, all the Republicans had to do is get up and say, we're not voting for new taxes. They should have answered that single question and dealt with it. And they could have dealt with the unemployment. But I want to tell you, don't tell me we have to buy this. This is the crap that's been going on in this country in politics. It's what the American people are angry about. Mitch McConnell got up on the floor of the Senate and said he was against earmarks. Now, either you are or you aren't and don't have the bill. And the American people have had it with this. They had it with health care.
I think you're right, Pat. You're absolutely right. If folks out there in TV land, email us right now about this whole invisible earmarks thing that apparently are in these bills. Friends at FoxNews.com. We're going to continue the conversation with this. It's really getting good now. Straight ahead, he ran on a platform of change, but President Obama's current policies are starting to look more like a carbon copy of the past administration. So what gives? Our panel will weigh in on that. And the FAA has lost track of more than 100,000 passenger planes. How could that be? Well, they could be in the hands of terrorists or drug dealers. How big of a threat is that? We're going to address that straight ahead on this Friday, Fox and Friends. Thanks, Gretch. Well, Gitmo still open, a surge in Afghanistan, and tax cuts extended, perhaps. These are just some of President Bush's biggest policies. Despite his outspoken opposition to them, President Obama continues them. So why has President Obama changed his tune and stuck to the Bush agenda? We continue with our political panel, Pat Caddell, David Mercer, and Liz Peek as well. Liz, we heard him very clearly out on the stump. He was going to stop all this stuff and other stuff. And yet, 2 years later, they're still going on.
Well, the biggest wake-up call in the world has to be walking into the door of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right? A lot harder to govern than campaign. And I think that, you know, we actually are at war with terrorists, and it's fine to pretend we're not, but in reality we have to have certain policies in place to protect the American people, and that is what George Bush did, and I think those are musts. Those are must-haves that now Obama has had to do.
And David, out on the campaign trail, yesterday we ran a montage of the president saying, I will roll back the Bush tax cuts for people making more than $250. And now, of course, he has caved on that. So there are people on, you know, on the left part of your party who are going, you know, what's that about?
Steve, to your point about being clear, let's be clear on Obama's statement. He knows that it would bust the deficit with $700 billion of tax cuts going to millionaires and billionaires.
Why the flip-flop?
And there's no flip-flop. He's left it to Congress, and if Democrats and their caucus can get the GOP to convey to their Republican colleagues that we should not be giving tax cuts to the only Americans that have surpluses in their wallets today, the millionaires and billionaires. So he is sticking to his word, and hopefully there's a bill that does not have that in there. He has said he will not sacrifice the middle-class tax cut on the altar of political warfare, but nonetheless, he is sticking hard and fast to making sure that the middle class that are challenged economically get that tax cut.
And you know what else, Pat? He's sticking to the Bush agenda in many instances.
Well, you know what? It's the reality hits you when you become president. I can tell you stories you've read for every president. I saw
Tell
with
us some
President
secret
Carter.
stories we've never heard.
I remember with President Carter, we made all these promises and things. He walked in, and within 30 days before he even took office, he was saying, oh, my God, this is what's, you know, the reality is when you have the pressure. But let me go back to this other point, though. Here is another problem. The president looked disconnected. I want to tell you, you can see as much, whatever you think about Rahm Emanuel, and I'm not one of his big fans, you can see the White House.
They're missing it.
But there is no larger visionary narrative. This president has lost any sense of a visionary narrative that he's moving the country. And you know what? You've got to be able to govern and do that to be effective.
That narrative is on behalf of the American working family. Look, listen. Let me give you another secret.
Quickly,
jobs. How about jobs?
The South Korea Free Trade Agreement, right, which just got passed. How many people have reported on it? Neil Cavuto on the show yesterday finally acknowledged that we had the biggest news story with that trade agreement.
Suddenly, the Kirby couch is sounding like the Democratic caucus. We got to end this before there's profanity.
But in fact, the trade agreements are exactly what Bush wanted, and in fact,
for the American working family, more jobs.
We're just getting started, folks.
Let me just say one thing. Jobs.
If America is open for business,
was concerned about in this administration with real people, they would be doing jobs instead of every other thing they can stick up to vote for.
Okay, we're going to have to end it on that cheery note. David and Pat and Liz, we thank you all for a very spirited debate on this Friday morning.
Pleasure.
Have a great weekend.
Before 7:30.